Hey everyone, I am Nate and welcome back to Hype Up. It's now time for another top 10 list. In today's video, we're going to be having a look at the top 10 craziest natural phenomena of all time. In at number 10 is Starling murmuration or black sun. Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds comes to mind when thinking about this natural phenomenon. A murmuration occurs when hundreds or thousands of starlings take to the sky in a synchronized and incredible dance, flying and swooping intricately coordinated patterns. This has also been nicknamed as a black sun. The impressive flocks can be seen in the US and Europe, particularly in England. But how do so many starlings manage to fly in such an amazingly coordinated way? The phenomenon was researched by George F. Young and his colleagues, and they used highly mathematical approaches and system theories to reach their conclusion. For the birds to accomplish this with the least effort, each bird attends to 7 neighbors. In following this rule of 7, the birds are part of a dynamic system in which the parts combine to make a whole with emergent properties. So basically, just follow your closest 7 neighbors. In at number 9 is fairy circles. The fairy circles are millions of circular patches of land void of plants, each between 2 meters and 15 meters in diameter, arranged in a honeycomb-like pattern across 2,500 kilometers of land. What's most interesting about these holes is that no one knows for certain what causes them. Scientists have suggested radioactive soil or that toxins released from plants kill the vegetation in circular patterns. Others believe the circles are the work of sand termites. To store water, they burrow in the soil in ring-like patterns and consume the roots of vegetation to allow underlying grains of sand to absorb falling rain. Or maybe the local bushman theory of the fairy circles being the footprints of gods is the case here. In at number 8 is frozen methane bubbles. Imagine a jellyfish that's been frozen in ice. That's exactly what frozen methane bubbles look like. The bubbles are actually pockets of gas that, when trapped under frozen water, form a landscape that looks out of this world. Found in winter in high northern latitude lakes like Lake Abraham in Alberta, Canada, these gas bubbles are created when dead leaves, grass, and animals fall into the water, sink, and are eaten by bacteria that excrete methane. The gas is released as bubbles that transform into tens of thousands of icy white discs when they come into contact with frozen water. It's a stunning but potentially dangerous sight, as methane is highly flammable. If you're planning a trip to the lake during spring when the ice is melting and releasing all the methane gas, I'd advise you don't light a cigarette. In at 7th place is Aurora Borealis or the Northern Lights. Aurora Borealis, this time of year. If you've ever read a fantasy novel, you've probably heard of this stunning natural phenomenon. While the Aurora Borealis or Northern Lights is more famous, the phenomenon also happens in the southern hemisphere, known as Aurora Australis or Southern Lights. The aurora is an incredible light show caused by collisions between electrically charged particles released from the sun that enter the Earth's atmosphere and collide with gases such as oxygen and nitrogen. The most common aurora color, which is green, is produced by oxygen molecules located at about 95 kilometers above the Earth. The rarer red auroras are produced by higher altitude oxygen at heights of up to 320 kilometers, whereas nitrogen produces a blue or purple aurora. In at number 6 is Lake Hillier. Located right here in Australia, Lake Hillier is a saline lake on the edge of Middle Island off Western Australia's southern coast. The lake's most notable feature is its striking shade of bubblegum pink. The vibrant color is permanent and does not alter when the water is taken out of the lake. The pink color is considered to be due to the presence of the microorganism Junalia salina, which is the only living organism present in the lake due to its high salt content. These organisms cause the salt content in the lake to create a red dye which helps produce the color, as well as red halophilic bacteria present in the salt crusts. In at 5th place is the bioluminescent tide. Red by day, blue by night, this colourful ocean phenomenon is a relatively rare natural occurrence. Red tides occur when there are chemical reactions between algae and other substances in the ocean. Despite its ugliness during the day, at night the blooms are quite spectacular, emitting a soft bluish glow when disturbed that looks out of this world. This is due to a specific chemical reaction between the algae and surrounding oxygen. While this blue tide is quite stunning to look at, the blooms can actually be quite hazardous to swimmers, animals, and marine life. Depending on the algae species, the red tide can contain high levels of ammonia that can cause rashes and eye irritation. In at 4th place is the snake mating ball. If you don't like snakes, then stumbling across this phenomenon in the wild would probably be your worst nightmare. In winter, tens of thousands of snakes wait out the cold in underground limestone dens in Manitoba, Canada. When spring arrives, for some snake species such as the garter snake, up to 100 males can be seen pursuing one female in order to mate, creating a snake mating ball. Several mating groups often gather at once in crevices above ground, littering the landscape with thousands of snakes. Finding the larger female snake among the potentially hundreds of males would be like trying to find a slightly bigger piece of spaghetti in a colander of spaghetti. Yikes. In at third place is giant permafrost explosions. As the climate is changing, new phenomena are developing. The most explosive, you could say, being the giant permafrost explosions in Siberia. Over the last few decades, huge craters have been appearing across Siberia's Yamal Peninsula. Researchers believe they are formed by thawing permafrost causing the buildup of methane below ground, eventually resulting in an explosive collapse. The process involves the pockets of methane first forming into mounds, then releasing the gas and collapsing. In at second place is the blood falls. Looking about as creepy as the name suggests, Blood Falls is literally that. Located in East Antarctica's McMurdo Dry Valleys, Blood Falls looks like slowly pouring scarlet red blood, staining the snowy white Taylor Glacier and Lake Bonny below. The trickling red liquid isn't actually blood though, nor is it water dyed by red algae as early Antarctica pioneers first speculated. The vibrant liquid is actually an outflow of an iron oxide tainted subglacial lake. About 2 million years ago, a hypersaline body of water became trapped beneath Taylor Glacier, overlain by about 400 meters of ice several kilometers away from its tiny outlet at Blood Falls. The subglacial lake is isolated from light, oxygen, and heat, and as the salt water trickles through a fissure in the glacier, it reacts with the oxygen in the air to create this bloody spectacle. Before we reveal what number one is, what have you thought of our list so far? Have you seen or heard of any of these natural phenomena? Do you think you would explore the world checking them out? Let us know in the comment section down below. But it is now time for first place. In at first place for the craziest natural phenomena of all time is volcanic lightning. Imagine a violent thunderstorm coming out of an erupting volcano. When these two forces of nature collide, the resulting spectacle can be so magnificent that it almost seems like something straight out of a fantasy novel. Volcanic lightning is kind of hard to study, but researchers have come to the conclusion that there are at least two types of volcanic lightning. One that occurs at the mouth of an erupting volcano, and the second that dances around in the heights of a towering plume. Researchers hypothesize that volcanic lightning is the result of a charge separation. As positively charged ejecta makes its way skyward, regions of opposite but separate electrical charges take shape. A lightning bolt is nature's way of balancing the charge distribution. That is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure you like, as well as subscribe and check out some of our other videos. I'm Nate, this is Hype Hub, and we'll see you all next time.